Could be our product and what best features can be part of the product or services which you're trying to design. Now, if you've gone through design thinking, you start with empathize, right? So what is the problem? You define the challenge and explore the human context as written over here. So I will not go in details about what exactly the design thinking process is, but I will try to focus on the prototype and the testing part, because that's where the session is, this session is all about. So when we start with empathizing, then we get into the defining phase where we exactly go and talk to people, identifying their pain areas, and then try to define the real problems, real issues which are associated with them. Then we get back to the drawing board and try to, when we write that problem statement, then we start ideating. And one of the techniques which is used for ideation is brainstorming, right? So then we start brainstorming good ideas and try to, or I would say brainstorming ideas and try to see which idea could be the best one to prototype. So how does it work is like you throw up some tens of ideas when you're trying to solve a problem, maybe hundreds of ideas. Now, of those tens of hundreds of ideas, not all the ideas can be executed, right? Then what do? You start choosing one or two or three of them and see, yes, if this is if I choose the three ideas and try to make a prototype and see if this idea can be converted into a product or a feature, product or a service, then you start assessing that. Once you start assessing the validation of the idea, so once you generate those ideas, you have to validate that idea. How do you validate that idea? You have to see if that idea can be executed. Now, one of the key elements of get an idea getting executed is if you can create a prototype for that product or for that idea, for the solution which you have thought of. Now, how do we create a prototype? Start creating an, as it is written, experiment, fail cheap and fast. So let me go to the next part. So how do you define prototype? It is an early sample, model, or release of a product built to test a concept or process or service, right? As we had as we discussed earlier, it's a sample or it's a model of the product or the service which we will try to build to solve a particular problem a consumer or somebody who needs that is facing. So for example, what we do, if we are creating a beautiful campus, like, and if somebody is creating a new campus or new university campus, what do? Do we straight away hire a construction engineers, construction company, and say, okay, fine, go ahead, and this is the piece of land you have, and go ahead and start building a beautiful building for me, start constructing a beautiful building for me? No, first we try to hire an architecture. So if you see over here, before you construct that big building, they try to create a small model. So what happens is, like, when they try to create that model or a replica of the real constructed building which it would look like, then they will try to showcase that uh, prototype to the real stakeholders. So for example, if you're trying to create a new campus for your for any university or so, who could be the stakeholders involved into it?
The trustees of college.
Great. The board, right? The other decision making personnel. So there are 3 to 4 key people who will be involved into it. So now when they hire an architecture, what do they do? What does the architecture does? Architecture first responsibility is to get the requirements from the stakeholders. So what kind of construction, what kind of building are they looking for? Are they looking for, for example, a typical concrete and concrete building made up of concrete also? Are they looking for environment friendly constructions? Will it have solar enabled solutions into it? So different kind of requirements will be there. So architects initially try to capture those requirements. Similarly, when you're trying to create a product or services, it is very essential, in order to create a prototype, it is very essential to capture those details. Now, those details can come from either from your own experience, in terms of, like, for example, if you have faced any challenge and you have created, you're trying to come up with a solution, and then you say, okay, these are 3 to 4 key features which have to be part of the solution which I'm trying to give to a particular problem. So you have few of these, you have the understanding of this features of that features which you need to put in that solution. Otherwise, you will try to go and talk to the real stakeholders. Now, for example, in entrepreneurship and innovation, whom are you solving the whom are you whose problem are you trying to solve?
It could be self, it could be something that you're seeing around you.
Absolutely. So moreover, if I straight away say it's the end user customer whose problem you're trying to solve, right? At the end of the day, it's the customer. If you're able to solve the problem which they are facing, then they're going to pay for you, then it will make a business sense for you, right? So until you identify the real challenges associated with your customer, and until you identify the real problem which these guys are facing, you will not be able to define the features of the product and services which you're trying to design for them. So it's very important that out of your own experience, number one. Number two, after talking to a lot many people, similar stakeholders, maybe the target group which you have identified, maybe it's a male, female, children, whosoever it is, talk to them, try to ask relevant questions, and try to gather the requirements. And once you have built that, I would say, a pile of requirements. Yeah, these are the things which these guys these guys need when I'm trying to solve the problem. Then you start building those features which are part of the product and services. Similarly, in architecture, what he does, he try to gather those requirements, and then he try to make a mock or a model which could which could best suit the which could best suit and match the requirements of the different stakeholders. Once that model is created, what he or she does, he takes that model and shows it to the stakeholders. And what do? They give feedback. And hence, this thing comes in. When somebody has created a prototype, which is a mock, which is a model, they go and test it with the real stakeholders and try to see if it is the same thing, if it is working, number one, or if it is the same thing which these guys are looking for. If not, then again, what happens? They go back to the drawing board. They again start empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So this whole cycle keeps on continuing until you get a product which is fully loaded with the features which solve the problem of the end user. Now, in order to create a prototype, so that becomes the part of your end product. Now, in order to create a prototype, you have to understand these features which you want your product and services should have. So what you should do, give your idea best form, then keep it rough. You don't have to really, keep it the right shape and size which your real product might look like, but at least you make something which is very quick and which is very rough. Use any material around you. I think if you have gone through the design thinking process, then you would have seen during the prototype phase, they will give you some different kind of materials which is lying around, maybe some cardboard, some sketch pens or so, and they will say make a quick prototype. So similarly, when you're trying to solve a particular problem with a certain features in your mind, or features which your end user is looking for, try to make a small model out of it. And this model need not to be, if you're trying to create an app, zaruri nahi hai ki wo app aapko coding karni padegi. First thing you should do, to try to create a small app, maybe a pictorial form of that particular app, and just go and show it to the end user. So how does it work? So these are few of the pictures which I have put in, pulled in from the internet. So for example, if you're trying to create an app, what do? You just take a small cardboard, add few of these features, and then go to the end user and seek their feedback around it, and then let them respond. So when you're testing your prototype, or testing the part of your product, best thing could be, you don't speak much. When you show your prototype to your end user, your end user should speak more, then you should speak more. So that's one of the caution you should take. So once you show the different features which you have already kept in your product, people will start reviewing, people will start testing, and they will give you the right feedback. And you note down those feedback. Once you get back to the drawing board, you should try to build on those feedback and see what all changes are required to make in your prototype. Similarly, just see this picture. Somebody is trying to create a process out of here. Somebody will किसने gate बनाया हुआ है यहाँ पर देखो एक ribbon से कि for example, if you are trying to if you're trying to if have you I mean most of you would have gone and seen the McDonald's ordering system, right? You enter into the McDonald's, you go to the counter, you order, and then you got to wait, get onto the sides, and then wait for your order to deliver, and then you take it and enjoy it in the restaurant. Now if somebody is to ask that, in peak hours, this entire process of getting into the McDonald's, ordering, it takes a lot of time. So how do you go and see what all things can be optimized and how it can be made better? So what do? The question here is about designing a particular service of what? Service of placing an order and enjoying your meal. So how do? You maybe empathize with the people. You look at different people who are ordering right now, try to understand their problems, and then you come up with a flow of flow of information or flow of service. And then you prototype it how? You create a small sketch, you create a small cardboard and try to see, this is how it might look like. And then you go and check and show it to the end user and see if it is really working and if it is really solving their problems. Again, this is another picture which I took it from internet. Here what they're trying to do is like creating a virtual office space, and then see, how will that look like. Maybe this is for an Apple store. So when they were trying to design an Apple store, how it should look like, how people should enter. So they try to create these desks, ordering information desk, a lot of other things using some cardboards, and then see what kind of process flow should be there whenever a customer enters into the Apple store. So these are the few pictures which I have put in from the internet. So now if I say, as I had mentioned earlier, first thing, give your best idea a form. If you have chosen 3 ideas, just try to give those ideas rough forms, using different materials which are available. If it is a process, try to design a sketch, try to design a process flow diagram and show it to the real customer. If it is a product which you are trying to design, if it is an app, if it is any other technological solution which you're trying to do, then create a small prototype using the things around you and show it to the end user. Keep it rough, make it quickly, use any material around you. Now what happens when you use this approach, making a quick prototype using different very or I would say using any material around you, what happens is like you have a better chance to refine your prototype, which will have better features, which will have better solutions designed for the end user. Number one. Number two, it will be frugal. It will be frugal in the sense it will not have much, not lot of money will go from your pocket, because innovation is expensive, right? Now, if you start investing in creating a real product, then what happens is like you might end up losing a lot of money. So rather than getting into designing a real product, you create a mock so that you can save a lot of money. So here I've tried to put up a couple of do's and do's for creating a prototype. First thing is like make it simple, keep your objective clear. Now, for example, when you're trying to create a prototype, you should know what all things you would like to test. You cannot, there could be tens of features which you would like to include in your prototype, in your real product, but it need not be that your first prototype will have all the tens of features integrated into it. You take that approach of include first 3 into the first prototype, then try to include next 3, and then try to include other 3. So take that step approach to create a fully loaded prototype. This is how I would like to put. keep it frugal, not expensive. Try to use resources which are at your disposal immediately. Take items which are lying unused. So keep it frugal, not expensive. So because there will be a lot of iterations happening when you're trying to come up with the final product of your of the solution. Then get your user or customer to test. This is very crucial, as I mentioned earlier. Until you take your product prototype to the customer, to the end user, you will not get the right feedback, and obviously will not be able to uh, get the best of the product, which would really solve the problems of your end user. And as I mentioned earlier, you should use minimum resources which are present at your disposal, so that your entire prototyping is frugal. Any questions till now?
So you said prototyping. At one point in time, you mentioned that you have 3 or 4 years. You should start looking at the frugal prototyping, or trying to put it in perspective
Yes, ma'am.
by creating prototypes or start to work on a prototype. Should it be based on a process of selection? I mean, the final decision we take out of those, which one will go for, is normally with a process selection or the process of elimination. Normally, when real world example happens, how do companies or how do entrepreneurs really work?
Okay, great. So it's a very good question. So it's like process of omission or process of selection, right? So usually it comes from the. This is what I tell most of the entrepreneurs, that whatever ideas, whatever thoughts you have, you should keep them aside for some time when you're trying to create a solution for your end customer. What happens is, like, what is that immediate need and pressing need of your end customer? You have already interacted with tens or 20 of them, and then try to understand which is the topmost feature which they would like to see in your product. Then out of those 10 which you have already listed out, try to see, okay, fine, out of those 10, these 3 are the top pressing need of my customer. If I include them today, these guys might, for example, if you try to create an app, right, if I include these 3 features into my app today and give it to these 10 of people, they will immediately download them because it will solve their problem. So the selection, I would say, should come from the need of your end user. So, and that's what I advise most of the entrepreneurs: keep your thoughts aside, listen to the end user, listen to the customer. So it should come from this selection, obviously, but by understanding the need of the most pressing need of the end user.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, great. So it was a very, I try to make it a little short. We'll try to look into this video which I have captured. Have you heard of this company called Nordstrom?
It's a
No, sir.
retail giant, no?
Huh?
It's a retail giant,
Absolutely, it's a
if I'm
retail
not
giant.
mistaken.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a retail giant in US. Somebody was saying something.
No, sir. I was just saying that I haven't heard about it.
Okay, okay. So let me just play this video, and this video will help you understand what these guys are doing with respect to creating a prototype of one of the couple of features which they are trying to include in one of their services or one of their apps. So I tried to pull this in because this is more related to creating a app. Let me just 1 second. Yeah, share screen. Which one is it? Oh yes, share computer audio, video clip. Can you see my screen? Yeah. So this is a video which is available on YouTube. So Nordstrom, they have this innovation lab internal innovation lab. So they were trying to create an app for their end user. And how did they do? They did it in real time, wherein they went to their one of the retail outlets. They took their software development teams to be present in that store. They tried to empathize, talk to customers who are entering into their store, and trying to gather piece of information from them, and then finally came up with a prototype which they showed immediately to the end user, and try to get that feedback, and finally came up with the software. So just let me know if you are able to see this screen and obviously hear the audio as well.
I'm JV Brown, the Nordstrom Innovation
So are you able to hear the audio?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I'm playing it.
Lab Manager, and this is the lab. We work on 1 week experiments. Somebody will have an idea and we'll find a way to figure out how to prove if the idea is going to work. And this week, the Innovation Lab is going to be building an iPad app with customer feedback as we go through the week. We wanted to work in the store to make sure that we were getting customer feedback as we worked, so that we were never working on anything that wasn't valued by the customer and only doing things that are delivering value. So we'll be building a feature and testing it until we get to the point where we have something that's good enough that we can just leave the iPad app behind and have this new thing that customers can use. This is the world's first flash build. It's a flash mob where a software team shows up and builds an application in a surprise location. This is the Nordstrom Innovation Lab, and we're at the flagship store in downtown Seattle. Right now the team is just setting up their equipment to get started. We're going to build an iPad app that helps customers pick the best pair of sunglasses for them. We really don't know what the features are yet. We're going to use customer feedback as we go along throughout the day and the rest of the week in order to build the best thing.
So the next thing we're going to do is a user story map. So we're going to sit here and together outline all the steps the customer would take, and actually even beforehand how they buy sunglasses, like what are the different things that they might do and how that process might change if we have this application. And we'll actually dig into what we have to build in order to support that process.
So now that we've done a card mapping, we're going to do a paper prototype, and this is something that we commonly do in the Innovation Lab. It's a great way to show what we'd like to do in a rough prototype that we can easily throw out, change, alter, based on feedback from the customers. I'll continue building individual paper slides, and our user experience specialist at Hotel will bring the prototype to a customer and say, okay, I have this app and this is a paper version. I'd like you to kind of use it like you would normally use an app, and you can press things, interact with them, and then she'll change out the pages based on how the customer uses it. So it's a similar experience to the iPad, only an analog version.
So it's day 2, and we have our first working prototype of this app. And how it works is I take my first pair of sunglasses, put it on, take a picture, all right, and then I want to compare it to this other pair I've got right here. Put these on, take another picture. I can just hold these up like this and see which one I like better.
Well, Tel and Kim, having talking to people and doing paper prototypes, we've been coding, building an iPad app. We take a stab at something, we look at the paper prototypes that Kim put together. We might take one at a time. Usually we come to the board and we grab the most important feature and we start implementing it. The really cool thing with this flash build is that we have actual real customers. Just today we delivered 4 or 5 different separate features, and I deliver it, swap the iPad with Tel. She'd go and talk to a customer, and 10 minutes later I had feedback from real customers about this thing that I delivered, and it changed how we did the next thing.
And it's been really, really great watching day to day what they've been doing, the team, to get all the feedback from the salespeople, the feedback the salespeople have gathered from the customers. And it's a really interesting process to kind of come in. On Tuesday, we had no idea what this would look like. There was an idea that somebody had to say, people take a lot of pictures of themselves with the sunglasses. It'd be cool if we could show them side by side to help them make the process better. And that was the idea, that was it. They came in, they had nothing built, and they've been building this literally on the spot throughout each day. And by now, we actually have an app, a functioning app that they can go through. It's very intuitive to help look at themselves and make the sunglass selection process easier, which is pretty cool to watch.
So yesterday, the sunglass buyer for Nordstrom came down to check out our progress, and she happened to put on polarized glasses and then held up the iPad in portrait view and was surprised that she couldn't see anything because it was black. And we figured out that the polarization of the iPad running up and down and the polarization of the glasses running vertical cancel each other out. You don't see anything. But if you turn the iPad to landscape, you see perfectly fine because the polarization of the two items line up, and it's okay. So it was a pretty good find to be in the store, and she just happened to put on polarized glasses. And so today, first thing we're going to do is switch it to a landscape design and then lock in the aspect ratio of the iPad so customers and salespeople just naturally pick it up and use it in landscape and not try and go to portrait.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what we've been working on the last 5 days. We've added quite a few features over the week. You take a picture, multiple pictures of the customer, and then you can pull them up. You tap the first one, you can see it larger, and then tap the second, and do a side-by-side comparison of each glass next to each other. We also added a feature where you can rename the picture because we heard from salespeople if a customer's trying on quite a lot of glasses, it's helpful to be able to know what order they were taken in and also rename if you want with the brand or some distinguishing feature about the glass. Another feature we added was the ability to zoom. You can zoom in and really get a good detailed look at the frames side by side. Also, to see one of the pictures larger if you want to just better view of one frame. You can flip the camera view as well. Face it forward so the salesperson can take a picture of it like this, or you can flip the camera like so. Take a picture of yourself facing forward. And then at the end of it all, we have a button called New Customer, which just erases all of the images and allows the salesperson to start with a new customer.
We're just trying to put the final touches on the app. Intel talked to a lot of users, and they said that when we went into the compare view, it was unclear where the pictures were coming from and which picture was which. So the animation here is trying to solve that problem, make it a little more clear what's going on. One of the challenges with software is when are you done, right? And I think the answer is really it depends on how much time you have. At least the most important things got done. So this was time boxed to a week, and we did a week's worth of work, and it seems like what we have now is something that makes customers happy and addresses the main problems, and something that we can track, we have metrics on. So I think we're gonna call that a day.
The application has developed so far. Everything's finished, everything that we've asked for, and even the little roadblocks and glitches that we kind of stumbled across as we use the app during the week has been solved. I think that it's going to be really easy to be able to implement into our sale, and I think that we're going to find a lot of success with the application, whether it's via a selling tool for us or if it goes public into a downloadable format. Whatever happens, I think this was generally quite a success.
Great. So if anybody would like to share, what were the observations made and what we discussed, I think they were mostly in line. So if you can share a few of the thoughts which we discussed and how Nordstrom had kind of used those into this entire process.
The first was the stakeholder. They took the customer in confidence. They spoke to the salesperson. I think they also their merchandise manager, the chap called Tanner, who's actually planning for the sunglass department.
Yes.
I think that was what's called. So all the stakeholders involved were there. Like you had mentioned, doing it on paper initially. So they were trying to be as frugal as possible. Do it on paper, speak to customer there and then, figure out what right, wrong, what is workable, not workable. The coders doing their own thing, and then finally they had the basic application in place. They actually had live demonstration with the customers and the people who were handling the app for the sales guys. So they knew exactly, what they were supposed to do. The problem that was thrown up was
idea which had come up.
landscape versus portrait thing gave which gave them an insight that they need to work on that particular Polaroid glass or something.
True.
Which was clash with the iPad. So they made that instant change and tried to understand where the problem was and try to sort out immediately with portrait landscape thing. I think more or less that was it. And there was a lot more. It's difficult to put everything down right now, sir.
Can you repeat the last part? I just missed it.
No, I said there's a lot more that they've done, in the sense they worked 1 week
Yeah.
on, on each of these aspects simultaneously, as in the
Absolutely.
person who making the paper draft,
Yeah.
vis-a-vis the customer were paying, vis-a-vis, and taking into account all the stakeholders comments that were coming back
Correct.
to come up with an app within a span of 5 days, which
5
was
days.
workable from almost from one,
Absolutely.
and we're seeing improvements
Absolutely. So
as per complaints, issues that were being thrown up
correct.
to them.
Right.
So going back to drawing board, coming back, going back to the drawing board, coming back.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
till they
yeah.
could actually come up with a base app in place, which
So
was
important.
completely workable and helping
Correct.
both
Correct.
parties.
Correct. Important. The most important thing was they were very agile in that approach, right? And the design thinking approach, working on the prototype, immediately taking the feedback from the customers. That really, this approach really helps, anybody to create a product in a very quick time, and with the right approach, I would say, in terms of with the right kind of features, rather than wasting a lot of times and saying, okay, fine, thinking around कि हाँ ये हो सकता है, ये हो सकता है, और ये सभी हो सकता है. So giving, rather than the developers, rather than putting their own heads into creating the features, the approach, as I think you were the one who asked this question, right? What are those top 3 features, which should be included into the product first? So as during the conversation it appeared, and in this video, that they were talking to the customers, and they were identifying from them, what deficiencies their product had, their prototype had, and accordingly their designers, their solution architects,
Actually, they
or the
were doing
software
the process of
engineers.
selection.
Absolutely, selection. Yeah, that's what I said. So anybody else would like to? Madam has already put up, I think, the entire thing in perspective. But if anybody else has different observation, different views on this, somebody says no, this is not the right approach, you're most welcome. We can kind of discuss for a minute or two. Hello.
Yeah,
So
what
if I may
can
come again, maybe this approach works in a lot of other nations, but I'm sure this kind of an approach would work in Indian set, because consumers are not very
No.
conscious, or they're not very comfortable talking upfront in the middle of a shopping session.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how much this would work in a real scenario. For those of my batchmates who are looking at doing apps, I'm not sure how much it will be viable for them to actually go in and do it,
You mean to
unless
say
it's
a
the
real-time
company
approach?
they're working with.
You mean to say the real-time approach?
Right. I mean, once because of Nordstrom employees, back-end employees, I think they had access to consumers. The consumers were also willing to talk to them.
Sure.
But as an entrepreneur, if I'm looking at walking and let's say coming a similar app, for example, for hairstyles or something like that sort.
Consumers might not entertain you, right?
I'm not sure today if any of my mates wants to make an app, wants to try something out. Consumers will be as forthcoming in a real-time scenario in India, particularly,
So I have a different
or
viewpoint
possibly
on this.
Asian country.
Yeah. So I have a different viewpoint because I have seen this. See, here they might be showing you the customers who are really talking to them, right? So in India also, I have seen, even I have done such kind of design thinking approach, use design thinking approach in defining a lot of these problems also. And I've seen, if you request your customers in any of these stores, the McDonald's example which I gave you, right? This was one of the approach which I took in real time at McDonald's, and try to see what challenges these consumers are facing. So if you really go and try to understand and just say, we are entrepreneurs, we are budding entrepreneurs, we are from this university, so people are really ready to help you in that area. So I would say out of those 10, there would be 2 to 3 who will 20 to 30% people who would really would give you the right feedback, would give you the right set of answers, correct answers, I would say, to the questions which you will be asking them. So, I'm not saying okay, 50 to 60%, but yes, 20 to 30% of the people will respond to the to this approach in a right way, and they will appreciate that. Yeah. Anybody else has any questions? No. Okay. So
anyone
see,
can play out or post in the chat box? Yes, sir. You can continue.
Rahul, you have some question?
No, sir. You can continue.
No, see, I just had these few thoughts around, prototype with the time, with the kind of time constraint we have
Yes, sir.
in this for this session. Although when we talk about prototyping in the design thinking approach, like prototyping itself can be done for a couple of days, for a long number of hours. So, but the kind of time constraint we have, this 1.5 hour. I think this is what I thought of putting. I've been trying to make you understand that uh, rather than investing a lot of time, frugal innovation is one part, in the sense it has to be cheap, but the time is most important element, right? Rather than investing a lot of time in creating even the beta version of your product, first try to create a prototype. एक छोटा सा paper pen pencil लेके बैठ जाओ and try to see and talk to the 10 to 15 of people, and then you get into the beta version of your product, right? Coming from the technological university, you will have the tech products, and that's where we talk about a lot of this beta version, and then before the end product is made, even the final coded product is made, right? So उसके पहले भी ना एक छोटा सा prototype तैयार करो and get it to the market, test it from them. So this was the thought I thought of instigating in you कि हाँ, time money बचाओ, or create a small version of the product which you want to make, and then test it into the market. And I think if I'm able to induce that thought into your head, I think this should be a good session for you guys. And I think it was helpful with the kind of example which I tried to share.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. It was really fruitful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? I mean, I can take a couple of more because I have to rush for another.
Yeah.
Post this, I have already updated Rahul, but I can take a couple of questions if you have any.
I think being interactive session, all questions are answered in between
Okay,
simultaneously. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking out time. I thank you on behalf of Innovation Foundation.
Thank you, Rahul. Thanks for inviting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks all the participants. Have a great day. Have a good night.
Good night, sir. To the participants, I have posted the attendance link in the chat box. All can mark the attendance.
So I'll take a leave, Rahul.
Yes, sure, sir. Thank
great.
you for taking out time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks all.
राहुल सर, अटेंडेंस के बाद हम जा सकते हैं?
हाँ जी मैम, अटेंडेंस के बाद जा सकते हैं बिल्कुल.
Yes. सर, एक्चुअली मैं IME ब्रांच से बात कर रही हूँ. मुझे प्रोजेक्ट से रिलेटेड कुछ बात करनी थी. अगर आपके पास 2 मिनट टाइम हो तो हम कर सकते हैं.
प्रोजेक्ट से रिलेटेड क्या चाहिए आपको?
एक्चुअली सर, हमारे ना पेपर माइनर शुरू होने वाले हैं 16 से.
I know. I teach in IT branch. I am well aware of these all facts. So don't worry about these things. It will be accommodated.
तो सर, जो डेडलाइन है वो 22 की है, तो सर वो.
Yes, I will extend it. Don't worry.
Okay, sir.
Varsha.
बट सर, जो अभी 8th वाला MCQ है वो तो सबमिट करना पड़ेगा ना, आई गेस.
हाँ जी, MCQ में I don't think it will take more than 5 minutes. There are 16 questions only. If you give 1 minute to each question, which is more than enough, it will take 16 minutes.
Yes, sir. MCQ is okay, sir, but sessions के लिए भी कुछ आप लोगों ने सोचा है, because हमें आगे भी जो sessions is like.
Don't worry about the sessions. I will try to formulate something. Don't you worry.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Varsha, if your name is not there, you can just drop me a message on my WhatsApp. I will see to it why it's not there. Do you have enrollment number assigned to you?
Sir, actually, we the students of IGDTO had some doubts regarding the last date of the assignment 5 given to us.
Please do one thing, students of IGT2W. Tomorrow from 5 to 6, we are going to have session with BBA students. All IGT2W students can join that session to clear their any number of doubts they have.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, just
Okay.
giving you a hint about what problem we were facing, sir. We are having our exams just after
I know,
Diwali.
I am well aware of these all facts. Don't you worry. We can discuss it tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
And
Thank you so
I
much.
already have a solution for that, so need not to worry.
Thank you so much, sir. Your help is really, we are really thankful to you. Thank you.
No problem, Rashni. Varsha, I'm talking about course enrollment number. If you have just registered, I will issue a separate roll number. Don't worry, any student who is not able to mark the attendance can just drop me on the WhatsApp to my personal WhatsApp number. There are only two admins in that group. One is VK Roda sir, another is mine. So you can drop me a WhatsApp message. I have posted my number again in the chat box. With lovely, you can just share again. Okay, I will share again. I have shared again. You can just drop a WhatsApp. Thank you, participants. I will be ending the session now. If for any query, you can reach me over.